What is up, YouTube? DCRC back, and we're going to do the review on the Xb4 X-Ray buggy. Alright, let's jump right into this review, the Xray Xb4 2016 Spec. First thing we see right here on top is the body. I got my paint scheme on there, yellow, silver, and blue. In my opinion, this is the coolest looking body on the market. There is a tech tip that I think this should fix the problem. There is a crack right here and also on the other side, and I'm pretty sure that it's because this lip right here that folds in, it folds in before the side guards fold in, so the side guards end right about here, and so when the body's pushed down on it, the side guards will push it out and it just seems to crack. So I think on the next body I use, I will trim that little lip off and it should prevent that from cracking. So let's move that aside and get along with the rest of this review. Alright, let's get along with the car. First thing we'll start off is the electronics. I'm running the Futaba Servo, a Futaba 4PX receiver. It is the antennaless style for indoor use. Got the track power battery. It is a 4600, so you can see right there, 4600 ADC, so it delivers not too much power, but just enough to get the job done with four-wheel drive. For the motor and ESC, we got the Much More system. So we got the Much More 6.5 in there for motor, and the Much More ESC is the only one they offer. And let's get on with the rest of the car. Alright guys, you've seen my electronic package, so let's get on with the whole car experience. So this car is an incredible car. The upgrades, I'll start off with saying the upgrades that I have on it. So I got everything box stock except for the center diff, which you can see right there. The center diff in there. I have not tried the slipper yet, but I've been told that the slipper is not very good for mod, but it is very good for the 13.5 class. So I just slapped right in the center diff. And then next we have the steering rack right here, which is the aluminum steering rack. The only difference is that this is aluminum, it says X-Ray, and it has two extra holes right here and here. The plastic one that comes with it does not have those two outer holes. Next we have the aluminum rear hubs, which you can see right there. There is one for the left and one for the right. The only reason that I run these is just for the more adjustability. There are 5 holes on this instead of, I think the plastic ones come with just 3, and on the aluminum ones they are vertical instead of horizontal. The plastic ones are horizontal, so with these you can adjust the height, which is nice. That is the only setup change I've ever changed, is the height of that, and I'll talk about that later. And the other upgrades that I have on this thing are the Team SR bling on it. You can see the blue nuts up here, the blue, what are they called? The blue washers, countersunk washers. You can see right there on the center diff. So you can just take out the button head, put in a flat head, and use those washers, and they just look really cool. I run those on the front, center, and back of the car, so you can see back here. The wing, I use the Proline Trifecta wing. It is an extremely thick, durable wing. This one I have been using for like 2 months or so, so it does have a pretty bad crack right there, which I will be replacing soon. But yes, they last very long times. Two-wheel drive probably 3.5 months, four-wheel drive 2 to 2.5 months, which is really nice. So when I said the only thing that I ever change setup-wise on this car is the height of this ball stud, is I always keep it at least 4 millimeters up, but when the traction is really high, I will move this ball stud 2 millimeters higher, because the higher you run this, the looser the rear end will be in the turns, and so it'll allow me to get the rear end to rotate in the turns when the traction is up. But when the traction is going down or the track is dry, I will take out those 2 millimeters and put it back down to 4 millimeters, and it gives me a really nice drive, that the rear end rotates on the dry track, and it seems to be really easy to drive and really nice. Now, working on this car is absolutely amazing. My last cars that I had were the 22.4 and the Hot Bodies D413. And for example, the Hot Bodies D413, to get out the front diff, I remember it was 21 screws, because you have to take off the whole top and then you can take out the diff. The 22.4 I think was 17 screws to take out the front diff. But this thing is so nice. All you have to do are take out this screw right here. So this screw on the bottom and that screw on the bottom. And then on the underside, all you have to take out is this screw and this screw. And there's 4 screws, and this case slides right out, and you don't even have to take off the bottom of the shocks. The diff comes right out that easy, and you're able to work on the diff. The center diff, on the other hand, is also 4 screws, 2 right there. That carbon fiber plate comes off, and the center diff slides right out. Alright, some little mods that I've done to this car I will share right now. Most people will run the battery backwards with the shorter mount, which is actually moves this mount into a hole further forward, and then uses a shorter top brace, so you don't have to use this foam. I decided to try this because that short mount is a tight squeeze for this battery. It actually cracked the case a little bit of the battery, and so I was scared that it would crack more and get damaged, so I just lengthened this and then experimented it back and forwards, and I really enjoyed it. In the forward position, it gave me great steering and a great amount of rear traction, not too little, not too much, and it just made me drive the car harder into the turns, out of the turns, and it just seemed to be a little bit faster for me. My next mod that I've done, it's not much of a mod, but this car comes with a plate that the ESC will actually sit on. It is on 2 screws, one up front there and one back here. And then the ESC will actually sit on top of that plate. And I took that out, and it gave me more steering, more flex in the chassis, and it seemed to just make the car round the turns faster and faster each mod I did. One main thing that they did change on this car from the 15 spec to the 16 spec is that they took out the top braces. Like the B44 has those top braces. Well, Xray decided to try the lower brace, which you can actually see down here, which I'll zoom in real quick. So right here on the bottom, you can see that there is a brace right there, and that'll run from right there where you can see the center diff starts, and it'll run all the way down to where the rear end mounts onto it. So that is the rear, and as far as I know, you can get it's either a hardened plastic or a carbon fiber brace on top to make it a little bit stiffer. On the front, I don't know if you can see that too well, but it's the same thing, that it's a little plastic brace, but the kit comes with a carbon fiber brace on top. And the nice thing is that the carbon fiber brace is a little bit longer, so you can fit your wires from the ESC down under that and out through the other side, so you're safe from the drivetrain. Another nice thing about working on this car that's really, really nice, if you got it really muddy or whatever your circumstance is, and you just want to tear it apart nice and organized, I figured out that there's a super simple way. There are 2 methods to take off the front end. There's one that you can leave the steering rack on the car, and then one that you can just take the steering rack off the car with the front end. My preferable way is to leave the steering rack on the car, and to do that, you have to take off, zoom in here, you have to take out this screw right under the top plate, and so there's that one and one on the other side. And then after that, you have to take off the 2 front bumper screws right here. And then you take off the 2 front screws right there, and these 2 back screws right here. And the front end will slide right off. Well, let me actually change that a little bit. After after you do that, then you have to take off either this screw or this screw on the steering linkages, and then that'll release the front end. The other method is to take out this screw right here, and then also take out the bottom screws underneath this, and then that will free the steering rack. And then you take off the 2 screws on the bottom that I showed you just then, and then those 2 screws on top under that rack, and the whole front end with the steering rack will come right off. Now the rear is almost exactly the same. All you have to do are take off these 2 screws right here and here, and then after that you take off the bottom screws right here, 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 and here, so those 4 bottom screws, and the rear end will come right off. Just be careful when you do this. There is a little spacer under the rear end and this brace, and so you want to be careful that that spacer does not get lost. One feature I really like about this car are these right here. They are screws holding down the wing, not clips. Now screws are a lot more reliable. They won't pop off, your wing won't get crooked during a race, and I think you'll just be much happier with the screws instead of clips. Another nice thing is that if you get your holes in the wing a little too big, you just clamp these screws down, they'll be nice and tight and it won't wiggle, which is a super nice benefit to screws. One super nice feature also about this car is that you can change the shock location of the rear. You can run it on the front side, which I am running right now, or the back side, which there are holes on the rear arms right there, and then you just flip around this top mount of your shocks, and then you move the shock tower from the front of the bulkhead to the rear, and you're set to go. So the build on this car went extremely well. I really enjoyed building this car. It took about 6 hours for me, 6.5 I think, and it was just very enjoyable. Everything went together extremely nicely. There was no grinding on anything or cutting on anything extra. It was super nice, and everything went together flawlessly. So the durability on this car is amazing. I have broken this car just once, which I should say it should have broken. I would definitely say it should have broken when it did, because I went down the straightaway. There was a pileup of short course trucks, and so I was stuck and I couldn't move. And there was an 8 scale that came up full speed behind me, hit my rear end, and the rear arm just broke. It just broke right here, and it was a simple fix. All I had to do was take out these 2 screws, take off the camber link, right here, loosen that sway bar, and then screw under the shock, and it was right off. And it probably took only like 4 or 5 minutes to replace that arm. I have taken some gnarly hits, like going into a wall, going into a nail on a tube, and I was actually surprised sometimes that it didn't break. And just in case, I would take the car apart, make sure the arms weren't cracked or anything, and I was surprised that nothing was harmed. It was super nice and very surprising. One thing that this car suffers in just a tiny bit is the strength of the stock servo horn. It comes with a plastic servo horn, and I hit a tube just right the first night out with this car, and it stripped the teeth out on the servo. And I got this aluminum servo horn. It was a clamping servo horn on the bottom, and haven't had an issue since. So there it is. That is the review on my Xray Xb4 2016 Spec. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, go hit the subscribe button right down there. If you have any comments or questions or anything that you are wondering about this car or thinking about getting one, or if I didn't mention it in this video that you still have questions on, please go down there and comment in this comment section and ask any questions you want. I will try my best to respond to them as fast as possible. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and see you next time, guys.